Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a system that's not just about remembering stuff. Nope, it's designed to completely change how you think, how you learn, and how you create. We're talking about taking smart notes.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we're going to talk about the note-taking graveyard. That place where all our great ideas seem to disappear. Then we'll meet the absolute genius whose simple card system became his creative partner. After that, we'll get into the big ideas behind it, the actual step-by-step workflow, and of course, how you can build your own system with the tools we have today.
All right, let's kick things off with an experience I think we've all had. It's that frustrating feeling that no matter how many notes we take, they just don't seem to help when we need them most.
This quote from Sönke Ahrens, who literally wrote the book on this, just nails it. We spend all this time highlighting, underlining, and writing things down, and where does it all end up? In a dusty notebook or a random folder on our computer. It's a graveyard for our thoughts.
I mean, be honest. When you have to write an essay or start a new project and you're staring at that dreaded blank page, do you pull out your notes and feel ready to go? Or do you just end up starting from scratch anyway? See, the way most of us were taught to take notes actually makes them almost impossible to use later on.
And a huge part of the problem really starts with our mindset. Most of us try to be the planner. We try to create this perfect, rigid outline from the very beginning. But the Smart Notes method completely flips that on its head. It encourages you to be the expert, letting interesting ideas and connections bubble up from the bottom.
So how in the world do we make that shift? Well, for that, we need to look at the incredible story of a German sociologist who built a system so powerful, it practically did his thinking with him.
Get this. Over his career, this guy Niklas Luhmann put together a collection of 90,000 interconnected notes on simple index cards. And this wasn't just some quirky hobby. This thing was an absolute powerhouse. It was the engine that helped him publish over 70 books and hundreds of articles. I mean, the man was a machine.
He called his system a Zettelkasten, which is just German for slipbox. But to Luhmann, it was so much more than a filing cabinet. He actually called it his second brain, or even his thinking partner, because the system would constantly surprise him by revealing connections he'd completely forgotten about. And the method itself was deceptively simple. Just one single idea per card. That's it. Each card got a unique number. But here's the magic trick. When he wanted to add to an idea, he just started new card and add a letter, like 1A. And if he wanted to expand on that, it would become 1A1. This simple system allowed him to create these incredible branching chains of thought that could go on forever, connecting ideas across totally different subjects. Okay, so that's the how, but let's dig into the why. What's the fundamental principle that makes this whole system work so incredibly well? So this idea right here is the absolute core of it all. We tend to think that writing is the last step, right? It's what you do after you figured everything out. But this method says, no. The very act of writing, of putting an idea into your own words, that's thinking. It's how we actually develop our thoughts. And you know what? There's real science to back this up. It's called the encoding effect. One study showed that people taking notes on a laptop tend to just type what they hear, word for word, which is pretty shallow. But people taking notes by hand, they're forced to summarize and rephrase, which leads to way deeper understanding. And that is exactly what the Smart Notes method makes you do. And there's another cool psychological perk too. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. Basically, our brains get totally bogged down trying to remember all our unfinished ideas. But when you write an idea down and put it into a system you trust, you kind of trick your brain into letting it go. It frees up all this mental space so you can actually focus on the next new idea. Okay, so the theory is fantastic, but what does this actually look like in practice? Let's walk through the actual day-to-day workflow. The entire process really just comes down to these three types of notes. First, you have fleeting notes. Those are just quick ideas you jot down anywhere so you don't forget them. Second, literature notes. This is when you're reading something and you summarize the key points in your own words. And finally, the most important part, permanent notes. These are your own ideas, fully fleshed out, written to be understood years from now and filed away in your slipbox. Now, this distinction is absolutely critical, so listen up. A literature note is about what someone else thought. It's short, sweet, and you keep it with a source. A permanent note is about what you think. It's your own argument, your own connection, written clearly. And then you ask the magic question. How does this connect to everything else I already know? So the goal for each permanent note is to make it atomic. You want it to be about one single concept. That makes it super easy to link up in a bunch of different ways. But as this Reddit user points out, you have to find the balance. If your notes are too small, you just create a lot of noise. It's all about finding that sweet spot.
Luhmann was working with thousands of paper cards and huge wooden cabinets. Pretty amazing, but we have some serious upgrades today. We have some incredible digital tools that make building a second brain way, way easier. But hold on, before you go and download the first shiny new app you see, you have to think about these 3 principles. First, future-proofing. Your notes should be in a plain text format so you're never locked into one company's software. Second, privacy. Your thoughts are yours, so your notes should be stored locally on your own machine. And third, accessibility. You need to be able to get to them on your phone, your tablet, your computer, whatever. So, with those principles in mind, a few popular options pop up. You've got apps like Obsidian, which are all about simple, local text files, great for privacy. Then there are others like LogSeek, which use more of an outliner style where every single bullet point can become its own idea that you link to. All right, we've got the tools, we've got the workflow, but the last and maybe most important piece of the puzzle is the mindset. This is what turns it from an organizing system into a genuine creativity machine. Sönke Ahrens has this perfect analogy for it. He says to think about shipping containers. It's just a boring, standard metal box, right? But that simple standard revolutionized global trade. It's the same thing with the slipbox. The rules, one idea per note, a standard format, seem restrictive, but they're actually what sets you free. They strip away all the complexity and let your ideas connect in ways you never could have imagined. So, for anyone just starting out, the best advice is simply to relax. Seriously, don't try to create a perfect system from day one. Just focus on adding notes that you find interesting. Trust the process. I promise, over time, you will be blown away as these incredible clusters of ideas start to emerge all on their own. You just have to embrace a little bit of the chaos and have fun with it. And that really brings us to the final takeaway, which is a choice. You see, rereading your notes and highlighting a book makes you feel smart. It feels productive. But real learning, true insight, comes from the struggle of pulling an idea out of your head and connecting it to something else. Working with a slipbox forces you to do that, again and again. It shows you the gaps in your thinking. And it's that very process that transforms you from someone who just collects information into someone who can actually generate new and interesting ideas.